Hi, and welcome to Feeling Beings Who Think. My name is Ariane Rice, and I am thrilled that you have joined me for this solo episode, which also happens to be the concluding episode of this season. The guests I have had this season, facilitators, authors, teachers, coaches, every one of them, no matter what their specialty or expertise, every single one of them, in my opinion, does the work of leadership development. Because leadership development, I believe, is human development. Or as my last guest, Meg Bolger, quipped, how do we human better? That is the work she does as a facilitator. And I believe that's the work of all the guests I've had the pleasure of speaking with this season. When I invite someone onto this podcast, I'm not just looking for expertise or credentials. I get a feeling of resonance with them when I work with them or when I meet them. It's not just that they're sharing their skills, it is how they show up in the world. Their work is an expression of who they are. In my very first conversational episode, when I talked with my friend and colleague, Mark Collins, we talked about that quote that comes from Howard Thurman. There is something in you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine, in yourself and in others. It's what we search for. It's what builds trust and connection. And if you haven't done the work in finding it within yourself, then you are going to keep searching. The people that show up genuinely as who they are, as a part of their work, that's who I want to connect with, because they're living the kind of life that I seek to lead and that the people I work with seek to lead, which is building people up in love. I know a lot of people don't use that language because, hey, it comes from scripture. It comes from a phrase, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. We've all met those people who use their knowledge to make us feel less than, and we've been with those people who use who they are and what they know to build people up, inspire them around purpose and vision. So my question for you in this episode is, how do you define and describe your leadership? Leadership, as I understand it, has very little to do with titles or hierarchy. It's not about the authority that is conferred upon you or your pay scale or role. Brené Brown says that leadership means taking responsibility for people and processes, and in doing so, knowing that sometimes it's going to take courage, and you can choose courage or comfort, but you can't have both. And Maya Angelou, who beautifully said, people may forget what you did or what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. These two ideas sit at the center of this podcast for me. We are feeling beings who think, and therefore, as leaders, we take responsibility for the people and the processes, the feelings and the thinking, and that has to start with ourselves. You know, we place such an enormous value on our cognitive ability, on our skills, our productivity, our competencies. We don't really talk about how we grow into our maturity as terms of our emotional maturity. We usually speak of maturing in terms of achievements, what we've accomplished. But emotional maturity and self-awareness are at the center of it. It's making a choice to want to keep growing, to keep coming alive, to keep developing, to keep being amazed by the capacities within us that we can stretch and grow as we create whatever it is we are creating in the world. So the question then is not only how do you define and describe your leadership, but in your role at this particular time and place, how is that definition and description helping you see where you need to be paying attention to your emotional growth? How does your self-awareness open up a lens that shows you this is what I need to be aware of at this particular time? This is the feeling I may be avoiding, the situation I may be avoiding because it stirs up some uncomfortable feelings. This is the area of growth that I keep putting off, But I know that in order to get through some of the challenges I'm facing, in order to help the people in the processes navigate these challenges, I'm going to need to figure out how to navigate my way through it. I'll share one with you that's of importance for me and also was a big part of my conversation last week with Meg. Anxiety, how I hold my anxiety and how I allow for the anxiety that is produced in a room full of people who are coming together in some spirit of growth, learning, or transformation. Because it is of the utmost importance that we learn how to tolerate that discomfort that anxiety brings. And I know you know what I am talking about. It took me a long time to realize the necessity of getting comfortable with anxiety, that was a discomfort I was going to have to tolerate and not avoid or fix. And wow, leading a church is a great training ground for integrating that awareness. I remember a moment early on when I was rector of the church, and I made a decision to do something that is a big deal in church life, which is combine two Sunday worship services. Now, if you have led a church, you know what a huge upset this can make to the system. And quite frankly, if you lead any organization, you know that when you start messing with the way things have been going for a very long time and you shift it or change it, that kind of disruption is never a small thing. Even when people have asked for it, even when they say they want a change, once the change is made, once someone has actually made the decision to move through, disappointment tends to follow. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. And I remember this one particular vestry meeting when we were talking about the anxiety that was moving through the congregation. And let me tell you, there were some people there who were really unhappy about it. One vestry person, wow, they raised their voice with me in a way that was shocking. But for them, holding the anxiety of the congregation, having to listen to the complaining that was going on, in some ways, they felt responsible for causing it. And they really couldn't tolerate that. That was kind of beyond their ability. So I had to tolerate their anger with what was happening and how it didn't have a quick and easy fix. So I remember saying to the group at that time, you know, we are going to have to sit in this discomfort for a while. And I'm really sorry about that. But we are the leadership team of this church. And therefore, we have to move through this and make this okay because we really believe this is for the good of the organization. And each of us are going to have to hold that discomfort in different ways. For me, since I was the priest in charge, I said to them, I'm going to sit down and invite anybody who is not agreeing with this decision to come and have a conversation with me and the senior warden. Don't do those conversations by yourself, clergy people. And you all are going to have to get used to, and we did do some practicing around this, just letting another person vent, right? Just letting another person express to you what was hard for them about the decision and letting them know you heard them. And, you know, I'm sorry, it's hard. So I remember having those conversations myself with different people. And I will tell you, it was hard and it required definitely choosing courage over comfort. I had to sit with some pretty powerful members of the congregation. And I remember one in particular. And listening to him and, you know, hearing him out and saying, I understand, but I need you to know that I made this decision with this community in mind and the mission of this community at heart. And just like you and your organization, I'm not going to seek universal approval for all of the decisions I make. That's not how an organization functions, and that's not what this role and responsibility requires. Now, some people did leave the church. Of course they did. That's what happens, right? When we make decisions that not everybody agrees with. But I will tell you what surprised me was that the conversations I had like that one, the ones that were really uncomfortable and hard, the people that I had those conversations with, they all stayed. They stayed in that community. I know now, upon reflection, that that was one of the ways we strengthened our relationships. We built trust. They got to see more of me, and I got to see more of them and make space for what is hard in human relationships, navigating conflict and holding anxiety. It's not always about making the quote unquote right decision, because not everybody is going to agree on what is right. It's about making a good decision that aligns with the mission of your community and knowing that your worthiness, your belonging, it's not determined by whether or not the decision is universally accepted and everybody is like, yay, great, you're the perfect person who does what we want. No, it's about knowing that even when you disappoint people, even when there is conflict and anxiety and discomfort, your worth is never in question. But moving through the realities of self-awareness and emotional maturity, connected with the relationships and systems that we are a part of, I think that's part of our spirituality. I think that spirituality is an aspect of our leadership. It's working hard to know ourselves well enough that we notice those feelings. We notice shame, we notice fear, we notice our need for approval, but we're not driven by them. We make the space and time to reflect on how those are impacting us so that we can get better at navigating them and learning from experiences, constantly in service of that mission and that purpose. How are we becoming better humans? That's what the spirituality of leadership is all about. It's not just about our jobs. It's about connecting with that purpose of building people up in love, working for the common good, whatever it is that fuels you and your purpose. How are you, through your leadership, living into modeling that which it is you seek to build up in the world? This integration of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and systems, it's all part of our shared humanity. This is the work I keep returning to again and again, because yes, it's about our leadership and our work, but most importantly, it's about being a human being, somebody who shows up and brings into the world the gifts that only they can share. So I want to thank you for being a part of this season of Feeling Beings Who Think. I want to thank you in advance for rating or reviewing this podcast or episode or sharing it with somebody that you think will benefit from it. And I hope that if this has sparked any curiosity within you about needing a thought partner in your work and your leadership, then I hope you will reach out and connect with me. All right. Thanks again for listening.